And continuing on the list of our East Coast trip rankings video, this is the 4th park that I've been to on the trip, King's Dominion. As you have seen in the title, I will be ranking every roller coaster at King's Dominion that I have ridden, so that does not include Dominator since it was closed the day I went, which is sad. But let's get started, with last place being the Great Pumpkin Coaster. This is the smallest coaster in the park, and yeah, obviously it's the kiddie coaster. There's not much to talk about, so let's just move on to the bigger coasters. Next up is Apple's Apple, and I believe this is a mock Wild Mouse, and honestly, it wasn't that interesting. I mean, duh, it's a Wild Mouse, but like, it didn't even go too fast around the turns, and besides the big drop at the beginning, it didn't really have any other outstanding elements. But I didn't really care too much since it was a Wild Mouse, so let's continue. Next up on the list is Reptilian, and I think this is a mock bobsled coaster. And this was the first bobsled coaster I've ridden, and what it basically is a roller coaster, but instead of track, it's just a slide. But you might be wondering, why is this ride ranked so low? Well, that's because I rode with another person sitting on my lap, and if I'm being completely honest, this thing crushed my balls. This was one of the most painful ride experiences I've gotten on a roller coaster, but I know that if I rode it by myself, then it would be really fun, so that's why I ranked it a bit higher. All the turns and twists were really fun, but just because of the simple fact that I didn't ride by myself, I was not really having a lot of fun during the ride. Next up is Backlot Stunt Coaster. This is a Premier Rides family launch coaster, and it was very interesting. The theming was very good and stuff. The layout was also pretty good for a family coaster. The indoor section when I rode it was pitch black and I couldn't see anything, and it was really fun in there. But I don't know what I was expecting, but when I saw the last drop from the off-ride footage, it looked pretty fun. But when I rode it in reality, it was super painful since the valley was so tight. Next up is yet another family coaster at King's Dominion, Woodstock Express. This is a CCI family wooden coaster. I've ridden the one at Carowinds and the one here, and if you've seen my ranking video of Carowinds, you know that I really like this ride, and that's the same thing with King's Dominion's Woodstock Express. Now we have come to our first thrill coaster on the list. This is Anaconda, the Aero Looper. I think that this ride is not painful at all. It honestly does not hurt, and I was bracing for the worst, but instead I just got a random Aero Looper that, even though it didn't have the best of layouts, at least it wasn't painful. But I still have to say, those turns right after the mid-course brake run, although they don't hurt and they go through it really slow, they are just kind of pointless, and the only forces they give is you hanging off the side of your seat because of how slow it goes. And when the ride finally realizes it's a roller coaster and goes through the last 2 corkscrews, it looks like it goes through it really slowly, but I found that I didn't get too much hang time, or as much hang time as I thought. Viper at Magic Mountain goes through its corkscrews faster and gives better hang time, so I just got confused. And after the corkscrews, the ride's basically done, and it's kinda lame, not gonna lie. Take it out and replace it for a mock extreme spinner right now, please. And next up, the second thrill coaster that we've come across on this list is Racer 75, and if you don't have friends that are riding on the other side, I can see why you rank this ride a bit lower than I do. This ride has like no forces besides the first drop and the drop off the turnaround. If this ride was a steel coaster, it would be a contender for one of the worst roller coasters I've ridden, but you know, wooden coasters, I have a soft spot for them, and even though that this ride is still extremely smooth and way too smooth for my liking since it has some of the Gravity Group pre-cut track, I still like it, I guess. It's probably because I'm more focused on the train on the other track that I'm going on, since I usually have a friend riding on the other side rather than the ride and the forces it gives. But unlike other rides, I don't mind it not having forces because it has the racing aspect. Yes, can't say that about a lot of other rides that I've ridden, especially wooden coasters and especially a forceless one at California's Great America. Next up on the list, we have an SNS 40 free spin, and man, am I getting sick of these rides. I have ridden so many, and I have seen so many that I haven't ridden because I didn't want to. The flipping sensation doesn't really do much for me, and nothing really stands out for me in this ride, except for the theming. This ride is really well themed, and I hope they have the same amount of theming they have, or better, for Rapterra. Next up is Grizzly, and I think this ride is pretty overrated. It's not really because of the forces, it's not that it's too rough, and in fact, it's the exact opposite. It is too smooth. I know, wooden coasters, we hate wooden coasters being rough, but I personally disagree. I think that if a wooden coaster has a good bite, I think it gives it character and it distinguishes wooden coasters from most steel coasters because that roughness is kind of what I like from wooden coasters. But with that being said, the airtime that this ride gives is really good. Like, the first drop, all the hills they hit, some of the turnarounds may be kind of boring, but, you know, it's still really fun. If this ride had the same amount of roughness as, say, Hurler at Carowinds, then I would definitely like this ride a lot more. But for now, with the smoothness it has, it lost its character and it feels like a steel coaster now, and that's not great. And next up on the list is Flight of Fear. This ride is an indoor coaster, but the footage I'm showing you is of the same clone, but an outdoor coaster. Honestly, the theming for Flight of Fear is so well done, and it's so good that I really like it, and I almost prefer it over the outdoor versions, even though they run faster. These spaghetti bowl coasters are really fun, and I wish I got more rides on them. After the mid-course brake run, it feels a bit slow, but after you go down a few turns, you start gaining up a lot more speed, and it suddenly goes really fast at the end. You go through one fast, high-speed corkscrew, and that ends off the ride, and it's a perfect ending. And into the top 2 of this park, and the top 2 of this park is really famous for being one of the best top 2s or 1-2 punches of all time. And I stand by that. At the number 2 spot is Twisted Timbers, and saying that Twisted Timbers is at the number 2 spot in a park is absolutely insane. This ride is like heaven for airtime. Every single hill, inversion, snappy turn, outer bank, or everything, it gives airtime or whip, or one of those. I can't stress to you enough that you have to get out to this park and ride this thing because it is absolutely insane. I couldn't stop riding it. It's so fun. Even the elements which people call so-called dud elements, like the inversions or some of the overbank turns, they're all still really whippy and really fun, or they're floaty. If Carowinds ever RMCs their hurler, then I really wish that it would be like this ride. Yeah, you guys saw it coming. Once Twisted Timbers is number 2, then I wonder what the number 1 spot could be other than Intimidator 305 or Project 305 or whatever it is now. I don't care. This is my number 1 roller coaster overall, and it is one of the best rides in the world, and I'm convinced. This ride is a literal speed machine. And not to say that it's only just speed, because it also has really intense snaps and really good airtime. Obviously, what makes it up this high is because of how tall it is. This thing is 300 feet tall. It is a giga coaster. Intimidator 305 holds a special place in my heart, as well as my 100th roller coaster credit, and it did not disappoint. Even the lift hill is insane. It's a cable lift hill, so it pulls you up really fast. Man, I've talked about this ride a lot over the past few videos, so I'm just gonna leave it at this. I don't think any other roller coaster in the world besides one will be able to top this ride. And I'm gonna be riding it this September. You can take your guesses in the comments on what you think it is, and I am so excited. And for the people who have stuck around this long, I'm gonna speculate where I think Rapterra is going to rank. This is the new for 2025 B&M Wing Coaster. Judging by the POV animation and some of the off-ride footage that I've seen, I think this will be the 3rd best ride in the park under Twisted Timbers and above Flight of Fear. If you see my credits, then you can tell that I've never ridden a wing coaster before, and I think if I ride this, it'll be a very interesting experience. If I compared this to Dominator just by looking at the POVs and off-ride footage, since I haven't ridden both of those rides, I think this ride would be better than Dominator. I personally have never ridden Volcano the Blast Coaster, which was the original ride in this plot, and it was a very beloved ride, and a lot of people are saying, oh, this is the new Volcano replacement, and it's very disappointing, but I haven't had that bias or that nostalgia, so I can't really compare it to anything. So I'm sure that I'll rank it a lot differently from the people that have ridden Volcano. Anyways, that is it for this video. It was a pretty long video by my standards, so I'm pretty proud of that. And yeah, I don't want to waste you guys' time, so I'll see y'all later.